Yeesh.
All right, we're live.
Jim, you really look like a sportscaster. We'd like you to speak in that voice.
Well, I'm here at the ball field, folks. It's about 71 degrees. Got two teams battling. Kidding. But Jordan would be he would be impressed. My little Sammy's on the all Miami-Dade team for soccer. And so they're practicing.
Nice.
And Charlie's here too. Charlie's on his traveling team.
This is dedication right here.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim. So Sally's just going to be a couple minutes late. Shane's lost power on where he's trying to zoom in from. And so he's not very hopeful that he can get a good connection here soon. And his phone's not working. So
Look at Jim. He's sportscasting. Dedication right there.
Wait, that is awesome, Jim. I love it. Sorry, I'm late.
you are good. We are actually just getting started. We've been having trouble with internet.
Oh, Shane's having trouble with internet as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's probably gonna jump in when he can, if he can. But we'll just start with a little update first, if that works for you all. Okay, great. So this is our work session. It is November 6th and we're 5:06. And we can do roll call, but it's a work session, so we have pretty much everyone present except for Shane at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and kind of talk through some of the slides I have. So I was hoping that we could talk about budget and our constraints right now, and then go into the nonprofit requests, if that works for you all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We do have the sheriff's budget in there. It's more to notice that we actually received the budget. He wasn't able to make the last meeting tonight, but he is planning on being at the meeting on the 13th. So any questions that we have, we can present those on the 13th, if that works for you all. We didn't receive the budget until Friday, so that's why I was like, well, you guys have been asking for the budget, and this is actually good context to think about kind of our bottom line and what we can spend. So that's why I threw it in there. So let me share my screen here. Window. And we're sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. I'm gonna put this over here. While you guys see that, I'm gonna have my narrative right here. All right, so I have gone back and forth on how to accommodate everything in our budget. What your original memo was actually more accurate than I thought it was. I was very hopeful this weekend that I could turn that around. And I tried all weekend to do that. But after writing the memo in your packet, I took the weekend to creatively consider the board's option for budgeting sustainably. And we are just completing our September actuals. So I have a better idea of the state of our finances to accurately predict our ending fund balance. And that's important because we are looking at that 3-month reserve that I'm trying to get to. That's not mandated anywhere. It's just best practice. We don't have any policies for reserve at this point. So I just want to throw that out there. I'm just trying to do what's best practice right now without an actual guiding policy. So the numbers in your memo have changed since this weekend and again since this morning. So these are updated numbers here. So in sales tax, when originally I calculated we had 3 months remaining, we only actually have 2 months remaining to collect. I started doing the math there, and we only have 2 months remaining to collect. So That's $371,000 on top of what we've already received. So now the new end of year prediction is 1,719,046. So this is updated from the updated version right now, live. All right, so this is giving us an extra $452,558.
Than what we budgeted.
In our fund balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Than what we budgeted, yes, than what we had budgeted for sales tax. This is giving us $452,558 over what we budgeted for 2022.
To contribute to our fund balance.
Correct. Any questions on this slide? Oh, do I need to
Can
make
you say that number one more time? Is it the
452? 558. And that's what we're over in sales tax, predicting to be over in sales tax this year. It could go up. We did have some a couple big months that we're anticipating. But that's based on 2022's numbers, that prediction is. Clear as mud? All right. Then we go into, we went over budget on several items this year, including Columbine Park, the streets, CPS planning services, and accounting services, all for a total of $190,000 and 961. So 190, 961. Then for next year, those big expenses, or you can think of them as like strategic choices. We have laid out Kendall Deck, wetlands inventory, Blair Street grant match, refuse fund sustainability, equipment purchases, fire protection, extra allotment, partner organizations, and nonprofit. And that was what we had budgeted originally, was that 50,000. We did receive $57,000 worth of nonprofit requests. And our partner requests actually include the full 30,000 for Creative District, an anticipated 15,000 for scheduling, and 1,600 for Region 9, and then 500 for the Planning Commission.
And 10,000 for San Juan Development.
And 10,000 for San Juan Development, yeah.
Is that broken down somewhere other than, I know it's not there? The partner organization subsets of that total number?
I can pull that up on our ClearGov if you guys want to see that broken down.
My computer is not connecting to the internet.
I know.
No one is?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
not just you. We're on my hotspot.
We're all operating off of Liv's hotspot right now.
I can do that too. No, you don't. Let's just quickly, if you could just say the partner organizations.
Sure. Let me pull this up too, so you guys can all see it.
Because that total amount comes to 57,164.
Pulling that up now. Okay, so we've got Creative District at 30,000.
And that's 30,000, not including summer sounds.
Correct.
Okay. And then we have ski drawing.
15,000 anticipated. We still haven't received an ask yet.
Okay.
That's what they've asked for in the past. We have San Juan Regional Planning Commission at 500. We have San Juan Development Association at 10,000.
And then, okay, right, grant sharing with them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What do you mean grant sharing with them?
As in the housing coordinator position.
that's on top of that, right?
Yes, that is on top of that. So this goes there.
Is the partner organization cash amount? And then.
In our
we-
personnel budget, we have,
We share that position of housing coordinator through, that's fully grant funded though. That doesn't come out of our general fund.
Right.
Yeah. Is that it for the partner organizations? I
And
didn't,
then we have Region 9,
oh yeah, okay,
which is $1,664.
okay. Thank you so
Mhm.
much.
Okay. Now I'm gonna go back to sharing this guy. Maybe I should just share my own screen so you guys, I don't have to jump around. Okay. Let me do that.
can I ask a quick question? When we're talking about what we were over budget on, like that 190,000, that would come, I mean, that comes from excess revenue that we earned. So it kind of comes from that sales tax number. So our contribution to our general fund balance is the difference between our overspend in those categories and the excess revenue.
It's gonna go something like 452 minus 190.
Oh, now it's going everywhere, isn't it?
Mhm.
Oh, you guys, no, you're seeing the right thing, right?
Mhm.
Mhm. So Sally's question is my question too. It'll be something like 450,000 minus the 190,000, right?
Kind of.
Okay.
I'm gonna get there in a
Okay.
second. All right, so you'll see I put everything in here for big expenses for 2024. Anticipating like if we were to fund all of these, what would it look like? And that's really what I look at. And then it's unfortunate because then I have to ask you what we don't fund in order to get to our end goal. So I didn't put in here the 150th anniversary, 20,000, because I do feel like we can do that for a lesser amount.
Okay. And do you have a target number here that you're gonna tell us about?
Yeah, so I do have a target number. I don't know if I wrote it down. Let's see, did I write it down? No, I didn't write it down. Okay. So we need a 3-month reserve of 1,147,428. That's with all of our funds. That's our 3-month reserve. If we funded everything, or if we funded everything, we would, all those big expenses,
Mhm.
we would have an ending fund balance of 287,444. We would still need an additional $359,984 to meet our 3-month reserve.
And that's combining it with the reserves we already have, the 500,000.
Yes.
Reserves we already have, yeah.
Yep.
So the 804,000-ish needs to be reduced by about 350,000.
Yes. The easiest option I have here is to not budget for Blair Street in 2024, since we won't expend the funds until 2025. That gives us $229,000. Then we need to come up with $130,984 at least. That's so we break even.
Mhm.
And what COLA increase are we accounting for? The 4%, right?
Right now, in the budget's only accounted for the 1.5%.
So this number still only accounts for the 1.5.
Correct.
Yikes. Okay.
I took one more last look at these numbers and had to change them during the last minute, so I apologize for that. Do you need any of those numbers again?
Can you say the number again? If we did not budget for Blair Street in this year's budget, let's see, it's like 350,000 minus 229, right?
Yes.
Like 140-ish that still needs to get taken out.
Mhm.
That's our goal.
That's so fun.
I know, not as much as I wanted. I spent all week,
Chocolate.
I spent all weekend thinking we could, trying to figure this out. And how we can do it all. That's as close as I got.
Mhm.
You guys might want some candy.
Do you guys want some candy? All of these lovely partners.
Okay, that's the landscape. What's next?
Next is we determine how we are going to. I mean, if you still want a 3-month reserve, which I would highly, highly recommend. Save that 150,000. And move forward with possibly funding some of the nonprofit requests and look at other areas that we can reduce spending in.
What are those other
Can we get
areas?
back to the big expenses?
Yes, we can totally go back to.
And so again, this is updated staff recommendation. It is different than
Right,
the PowerPoint.
double updated.
Yes, got it. Redacted.
Yeah, it's not the way I like to operate, but
All right.
I do want to make sure that we are getting the right information.
Jim, are you all good? Are you with us? Great.
Oh my gosh,
Where is it? Oh,
that's the best. That's the
No,
best.
I'm following along. I have the spreadsheet open. I got my notepad right here.
like
I'm
that
following
you're-
along to everything.
So November is the month where everybody tunes in from random places.
Mhm.
Mhm. November and April.
Okay,
All right, to me, it seems like a no-brainer to put Blair Grant Street Match into future funding. I would also just like to put on the table for future discussion is, are there other ways of funding that match without it all coming from the general fund? And I would be curious about like improvement district funding or other revenue options there. So can we just kick that can down the road? Can we kick it down Blair Street?
budgeting joke. You're so
So-
good.
And it seems like we don't really have an option with the refuse fund sustainability, right? That's just kind of like what's
Yeah, and so we do hope to recover costs next year. We have to anticipate that that's how much we are going to lose in the refuse fund. We can keep it as a separate fund. We don't have to fold it into the general fund, but it's no longer an enterprise fund on its own. It's being supplemented, kind of like the library, and the cemetery. You know, if it needs funding, we supplement it with the general fund.
Mhm.
But we will be addressing EQR and business rates, as well as residential rates and cleaning up our accounts, which we hope will recover at least half those costs.
Mhm. Yeah, so we expect that number to change, but right now it kind of has to stay what it is.
Correct.
Mhm.
A question I had on the sheriff increase of 63,781 is, I think if I read everything correctly, it looks like a portion of that at least is going to hire a new employee. So that's a salary amount. And I'm wondering how, and this is probably a question to hold for next week, noted. I'm just wondering how imminent that hire is and if that's in the same bucket as like Blair Street of kicking the can, like I don't know.
Mhm.
When I talked to them, they were hoping that they could hire someone, but it's unlikely they're gonna get someone right away.
Yeah.
Additionally, the county did stress that their insurance has gone up significantly for law enforcement, and they are not passing on that cost to us. So they are taking on that burden.
I think it would still be helpful to hear from the sheriff's department when they come next time, just kind of a little bit of context, you know, tell us how the summer has gone. We didn't have OHVs in town, but there's more out in the county. And so like talk to us a little bit more about the position, about what the deputies are seeing, about call volume, just kind of give us a little context for the request for increased staffing. That's what I would like to ask for. Paint the landscape for us.
In my original memo, I did give you all areas that could possibly be cut.
Remember that. Yeah.
And I desperately tried to find funds, and now we're back to it being cut again.
So in your memo, you said the machinery and equipment. Is that still something on the table?
But does that increase costs in another area? Like I remember somewhere in this discussion, the idea that if we have the equipment, then it means we're not renting equipment from other outside sources, which increases the cost kind of on the flip end. So is this really a cost savings or not?
Well, so in the long run, no. In the short term, yes.
Right.
So next year we did budget for actually a rental of another loader, just in case we have a snow year that we did like this year.
Okay, so just to be sure that we have a great snow year, let's cut the budget.
That'll make it snow tomorrow.
It's funny how that works, Sally.
Okay, so short term, it cuts our costs, long term.
This year, CDOT didn't have the auction that we had anticipated them
No.
having. We desperately need a new work truck, at least one new work truck. We are applying for a grant through CDPHE for recycling that would include a work truck to help empty recycle bins downtown. But that's not a guarantee.
Mhm. Anybody have any creative pots of money? I mean, I think for me, as I've been thinking about this budget, we've been talking about this budget for multiple months, especially even in the finance committee. And I think what I keep coming back to is like, what are our strategic priorities, right? And I think I keep asking myself the question, like, are we spending according to the community's priorities, according to master plan priorities? And I'm thinking kind of like a household budget. Obviously, town budgets are not the same. But if you spend $8 on Starbucks every single day, you might never save up for the car that you want to buy. And so I just keep asking myself the question of like, if we spend a little here, increase there, that could be fine. And that could be in line with our priorities. But it also could be not allowing us to save up for like the big things we might want to do. And so we have some of these expenses here. I just keep kind of gut checking around, are all of these requests, are all of the expenses, are all the things what we're doing in line with strategic priorities and plans? And I think there's going to be future stuff around facilities that we don't know about. That's future stuff potentially around the code rewrite and wetlands, you know, like, okay, we're going to do this inventory, but like, when are we ever going to think about, are we going to put any town money towards that? We have a new facilities and parks and rec director. As they think about strategic planning, is there going to be projects in there that are in line with the master plan that we will want to fund? So that doesn't even help us today, but it just makes me think like, are we allocating reserves and surplus that we have now? And are we thinking strategically in the future? And that doesn't lead me to any specific conclusions, but like I would look at this and I would say, the Kendall deck, it's been a super high priority. It's limiting the functionality of that building. We've issued an RFP. We need to get that finished. Like the community, we owe it to the community to finish that project. I think the wetlands inventory, we've already committed to that. I feel like it moves the ball forward on some of our master plan priorities. I think we should keep that commitment. I think Blair Street, we already said we could kick the can down the road. Refuse fund, we kind of don't have a choice. Equipment purchase, we could argue about, but like maybe eventually we're gonna have to like budget for it. I think the fire protection, the next three are kind of up for discussion, maybe the next four. I still think the perimeter trail and having a capital improvements project or plan feels really in line with what the community has said that they want. We had all this community engagement to get people involved. We had a discussion around how do we invest in things in the master plan. So I don't know, but we all could like look at this list and be like, well, this is my favorite. And I think this fits. And you could look at all the nonprofits and you could argue almost all of them are in line with the master plan. So we really kind of have some strategic choices to make. And we've been able to say yes in the past couple of years. And now we're in this tough position that we're having to say no. Anybody have any priorities, preferences? Do we want to go through the nonprofits and the partners?
We have a lot of people from I'm guessing,
Yeah.
who are here on behalf of their nonprofit request. So in terms of just the flow of our work session, I think that was a really good, we've gone through the list. I wonder about are we having an opportunity
That's up to the board if you'd like.
we want to discuss that now, just so we don't keep people
Yeah.
sitting here unnecessarily, and then we can kind of circle back to our big
Projects.
overview once they've made their pitch.
Mhm.
Okay. So Jim, board, what do you guys think of, do we want to have opportunity for nonprofit presentations? Is this a good time? Okay, and do we want to have a time limit there, or?
I guess the question is I don't know if of all the folks were ready to do a presentation, or is it more like we have a
Q&A.
the funding and Q&A? Yeah.
Last year, we did it more of a Q&A.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to say presentation. I mean, just.
Who brought their PowerPoints?
Woo, hot seat, no hot seat, just, yeah, opportunity to share and, yeah. Explain what the proposal is. Okay, well, maybe let's start with 5 minutes, just so we have some parameters and it creates some fairness and equity, and then we can be flexible when we need it. So can we go through this just maybe in the order that we have in the packet? And if someone is here, then they can come up and present. And I will be trying to access my packet.
I think
but
I
in the
have it right here. I
meantime-
have, yeah, or Jordan have it.
Animus Theater was first, which I don't think Misty's here.
Okay,
Yeah.
And Silverton San Juan Clinic. And Center for Snow and Avalanche Studies. EMS. Farmers Market. I guess Mountain Film would be the first
okay,
person.
Jump on into it.
Brendan.
Bigger, helpful?
The microphone and just,
Yeah, I am here to pitch, requesting a little bit of money from town for Mountain Film on tour. We hosted it in, like, the background, we hosted it in town last year for the first time and relied really largely. Yeah. On support from the business community and the Chamber of Commerce, and it went off flawlessly. And this year we are trying to diversify our revenue streams a bit more, so we're not relying wholly on businesses to make this happen in town. The big change this year is that we're going to be hosting at the Kendall Mountain Community Center rather than the Grand Imperial, so we can have larger capacity. With that is coming the need to rent a lot of equipment, mainly a projector, a screen and sound equipment and possibly some sound dampening features, depending on what happens. I've checked in with Nate. Nate's optimistic that there's going to be some dampening panels hung in the banquet room of the community center by December, but who knows? So trying to do everything we can to make it a really high quality event. And that is where this request comes from. I'm requesting $1,000 for that equipment rental. That'll come from a couple different places. And that is about a fifth of our overall budget for the equipment rental. I think I made a note in the packet that this event isn't explicitly called out in the master plan, but ties in really nicely with page 100, where I think the something 100 or 99, something to the effect of putting on events for locals. And after talking to a lot of people 2 summers ago now, we came up with January being a great time for that. People are in town. We of course welcome people coming from out of town for this event, but it is like really intended for people who live here to have a really positive, culturally enriching event that they can attend. And then the last thing I'll say is that like we're continuing to build each year. And so this year, the big growth is being able to host more people. We sold out like really quickly last year, and I think capacity was ballpark 50 or 60. Very easily could have had 80 to 100. So this year we're targeting 100, 120. We can hold up to 150. And then 2 years down the line, I'm really hoping to add like a makers component to this. And so it's not just people coming to watch the movies and be culturally enriched through watching. The grand idea I have is to get involved with the school, do some things with the kids in the fall. And then, you know, like a film after school film club kind of thing. And then potentially have like a matinee of the kids' movies before the mountain film screening. That wouldn't be until 2025, but I say that to point out the fact that like we're really trying to continue to build this and have it be a strong community-driven event. That's all.
Thanks.
What questions?
Okay, one thing I had on this is in your budget, I think I saw that there's the $300 rental for Kindle. That seems like an easy wave. Is
Think-
it?
Are you looking at 2023 by chance? I think that's 2023. I put that in for, yeah, for 2024, I put 0 for Kendall because we're doing it through Creative District. So it is marked as 0. I listed
Oh.
100
Okay,
last year for Grand Imperial. That was also waived, but I was just making a note that
okay,
that was kind of, I wouldn't say waived. I'd say that was part of the sponsorship.
yeah, okay.
But thanks for trying to find,
Trying to chip away.
thanks for trying to find things.
Because I have one question. It'll be kind of the same for everyone, I think, but more or less, if your project either isn't funded or is partially funded, is it still likely going to happen?
It'll happen. I think it'll happen at a reduced quality, like the available screen and projector right now in the banquet room works. It's not great. It's too low. Like the screen's too low. Like if you have more than one row of people, anybody who's behind the mark can be able to see. And it's small. So it will go off. The event will still happen, just at a lower than desired quality. In terms of the film, audiovisual aspect. Everything else will be great.
How many people do you anticipate will be coming?
Attending 100 to 120. Last year we did it on a Thursday night. This year it's on a Saturday night. It's also the weekend of the sled dog race. And who is it? There's some nonprofit organization that stays at the Grand Imperial that does stuff at the mountain, whose name I'm blanking on. They're going to be here that weekend too.
Wait, what's the day of it?
Saturday, January 13th.
Oh, yeah, that'll be our ski race too.
Yeah.
In town?
And so there will be a lot more people around. So I think last year, like very easily, we could have, like we sold out of tickets just because of capacity. 100 to 120, I feel like should be pretty easy.
Great.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I do know.
Should we let the well-behaved little people go first? Before bedtime?
Yeah. She's kind of stealing the show. It's a little distracting. Brendan, you're great and everything, but she has a baby.
Is that okay if we move out of order? Okay.
I just asked Hannah and her to join me, because why not?
Prop.
Why not have one of our
Shameless.
sweet
Shameless.
babies
Uh-huh.
there? Yeah, so we have been impacted by the universal preschool unrolling this year. In previous years, we have been funded through Colorado Preschool Program, which was discontinued in July, and have really been able to use those funds across our program, infant, toddler, and preschool, to basically have everyone on a really decent scholarship. And this year, I mean, we're actually with this universal preschool, we're about out $120,000 from our budget. It was hard budgeting up front, really not knowing, and we are going to receive some gap funding. They're calling it hold harmless, the state is, through the public school, but that is still uncertain, and they haven't given us a dollar amount. So, and one thing that we've done several things to try to mitigate and like diversify, you know, how we can still, obviously, we're never going to not have children in our school because of inability to pay, you know, so we're trying to figure out different ways and access different funding streams, restructured our tuition and increased that after a long time of not having an increase there based on regional and states rates. An evaluation that we did. But what we'd like to do also is just build a in-house scholarship program and just have a pool of money that year over year, we can just maintain that fund specific to offering tuition assistance to families who may not qualify for anything else. And yeah, so I did put in for the full 10,000. I have a couple of other applications out. I imagined that you guys would evaluate what you could offer us, you know, if you were interested in supporting families in the community with access to this. And we would be very thankful for any amount that you could offer to help us build that fund. And I think that's the gist of it. Is there any questions or things that come to mind that you wonder about? Wilder loves it. It's fantastic.
I was just gonna say, Sarah, that I think that you absolutely should put that this fits with the master plan. Like SFLC is not identified specifically because you were providing excellent services, right? But if high quality, accessible, affordable childcare went away in our community, you could absolutely guarantee that it would have been in the master plan. So I think like accessible childcare is essential for economic sustainability for our community. Again, it's kind of the question of like, what role does the town play in that, right? But don't sell it short as far as what it offers because it's pretty critical.
Yeah, well, in our evaluation, we know that in the region, we are the only community that has a program like this. Ridgeway, Uray, they either have nothing, I mean, literally no childcare programs, or very, very limited, and just for children. It's certainly no infant and toddler care offered. So it's really unique, and it was definitely, I mean, the town and the county originally worked really hard together with a group of parents to build this. It's been a community effort all along, and we do receive, you know, because the county manages the TANF funds that are filtered through the state, and we receive $16,000 a year from them, and it's specifically tied also for purposes that we have to use it, but they do support the program in that way as well. But thank you, and it is unique to our community.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you see a scenario where if the town was able to say, hey, we'll fund you 5,000, the county would match? Like,
That was my question.
like, do you think there are options where if we say, hey, we can do this, hey, county, do you think?
Well, I mean, I go to them quarterly
Yeah.
and talk with them. You know, with the uncertainty around this, I hadn't gone there with them. I think that's a potential option. Like I said, I have a couple of applications out to other foundations right now. So looking to build it from multiple sources, and that's a great idea. Sure. I hadn't gone there yet. And thank goodness, I got the second reminder because I was like, oh, this is a great opportunity. I feel like I know that people value the program, as a needed service. And so I thought I'd throw it out there. See.
It was also important for us to restructure our tuition rates. Obviously the UPK being taken or being put in place, but not actually given for all the ages was a big blow, but we had to increase the tuition rates as well because that helps us with grant funding. So like we weren't able to actually ask for a lot of money because our tuition rates had been so low historically. So we're upping those so that we can get more money from all these different sources. But we're still hoping that it's not actually hurting families.
Yeah.
Currently, it is for some people, right? Obviously, we're not like turning anyone away, like Sarah said.
And every family is receiving some subsidy at this point, but I mean.
And that's what we're hoping is like, we can keep these tuition rates in a way that like, when we're competing for grants, it's like we're normalized with other childcare facilities, but also like making sure that the family, it's not like at the price for the families.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I just lost one more thing. Another thought that comes to mind is like, as we've grown, right now in particular, maybe, we went through a big renovation project this summer so that we could expand our capacity. And we have, more infants and toddlers than we ever have. We're in the midst of this baby boom here in town. So so that means more staff. And our costs have increased over the years too with that growth. And so, yeah, it's just an interesting place we're in with the growth and trying to navigate that. But
Proposition 2 passes, are you going to be eligible for those funds or is it too early to know? If that passes, it's 20-some million for preschool and early childhood learning.
I don't know about it. Anytime I need to turn my ballot in tomorrow.
Obviously, it's contingent on it passing. And then of course it will take them forever to figure out probably how to dole out the money. But I don't know if there's any sort of roadmap to accessing those funds if it passes.
Yeah, we do have some really great relationships with regional partners and our childhood councils. And so I feel like if those funds do become available, and when they're ready to be unrolled, absolutely, we'll be able to access them. Oftentimes, bulk of those funds go to the Front Range because that's where the majority of young children are. So really large programs kind of get first dibs on some of that, but we've been really fortunate and done a lot of hard work to get our hand in all the spots. So.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. Now I'm gonna read it. But
I love the cheerleader screen.
Well, thank you guys for listening. I appreciate all of your work. I know it's a lot, so thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, that was a good idea, Dana. Okay,
Radio.
I have a training at 6.
Thank you, Brendan.
Radio.
Radio.
I'm here for the radio, guys. I'm Charles Alex Lannis, but everyone knows me. It's Silverton. Danny couldn't be here today. Sorry, he sends his apologies. It was his granddaughter's birthday. So he sent me last minute instead. So I apologize if I fumble this at all. So we're asking for about $3,800 for the radio. It's a lot of bang for your buck. I don't think I think it's pretty obvious what the radio has done in this past year with the tiny amount that you gave us last year. We have been extremely visible in the community and been able to use our equipment not only for our events, but for more than 24 events throughout town, like night skiing, the farmers market. We loan out our equipment quite a bit as well to the powerhouse and to pretty much almost any. We've said no a handful of times, but we generally say yes to anyone that requests to borrow our equipment. And And so the funding you provided us last year essentially allowed us to purchase half of a PA system, for which Danny matched, the remaining amount, for that half. And now this request is for the, entire amount for the other half of a PA system. And that would allow us to continue to do what we're doing, to loan out our equipment to organizations that need it, as well as show up for all the cool events in town that we are able to show up for. And like I said, this is a lot of bang for your buck. We spend, thousands of man hours at the radio station, putting on these events and helping town put on these events, instead of, having to rely on town employees or other groups or employees within the town and county. We do it. It will also allow us so we have raised quite a bit of money to help redo our radio station. And Liv is kind of helping us redo some of our equipment. And if we don't get this grant, we're going to have to use some of that money to purchase PA systems, and it would most definitely make it more difficult for us to do all the renovations we need to our radio station. So I recognize this is not in the master plan, but we're not asking for very much money. I mean, this is kind of pennies compared to your overall budget. Certainly, you're talking about $175,000 for a deck. We're asking for $3,800. And we're a volunteer-led organization, completely donor financed, and we're very visible in this community. And I think the town of Silverton appreciates everything that we do. Is there any questions?
I had one question of again, just thinking, I think you're absolutely right. Alex, that there's all of these requests are not a lot of money individually. You start adding up all the requests and then all of a sudden we're talking about 50,000, 75,000, 80,000, whatever. So the question I had was, is there an idea that we could fund, half of it this year, half of it next year, or just say we'll fund the full amount this year, but then probably next year we wouldn't hear from you guys necessarily, because this would be funded and you guys would be on your merry way doing your great merry things. Just kind of thinking about how we.
Well, we're a very involved organization in the town of Silverton, and this would help us fund everything we need for this year. But like I said, we are very visible, and there's things that we would like to do for 2025 that we would like to have for the 2025 budget as well. And so we don't have that, but we don't have. Again, I'm representing. Danny's supposed to be here, so I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants. But we would definitely have a request for next year as well. That would be something beyond the PA system, so we can provide more for the town of Silverton.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Guess I got a couple, I guess. So the original question of this, if it's, partially funded or not funded, what's the likelihood of this project still happening? And kind of the second follow-up question would be that with maybe if you do acquire this PA system, could you work with Mountain Film to potentially lower their rental costs, or is it different type of equipment?
So that would have to be a conversation I would have to have with those guys. Again, we pretty much lend our equipment out to anyone that needs it. And we've done that several times last year, and we will continue doing that because, again, we're a nonprofit. This is community equipment for all intents and purposes. So if they came to us and requested to use our equipment, it'd be an automatic yes. There would be no issue with it. As far as if we will continue through purchasing these items, depending on how much you fund us. Like I said, we would like to do some renovations to our studio and purchase some new equipment for that, for which we're paying 100% out of pocket for. And if we don't get funded our full amount, we're going to have to use what has already been budgeted for our studio renovations for PA equipment. And the PA equipment is the studio and the radio. Sure, it's community radio, but at the end of the day, we're not using that to go out for public events. Where this PA equipment is for the public events that the radio station is part of. A lot of these events that the town puts on, that we help the people will come. We do massive amount of advertising, all free, for things like ski joring and the night ski, and then the 4th of July. And some of these events, people come just because the radio station is there. So we would like to be able to continue to do that and do it to even better standard than we have in the past year. And like I said, I think it's pretty evident of how well we spent your money that you gave us last year, because we've been very busy.
It's your money.
Yeah, well, the money that you guys have provided us, yeah. So yeah, we might be able to go ahead and purchase the equipment we need, but again, it will be taken out of our budget that's intended for our studio renovations. Any other questions? All right, guys, thank you very much. I know you do have difficult decisions in front of you, but like I said, I think we provide a big bang for your buck, and we look forward to continuing to be part of this community and being a visible radio station. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Moving on down the list, Carrie, Senior Center.
Right. So I'm here to ask the town board for a little bit of money. I did ask the county last year for some money to put in a propane generator over at the senior center. And just thinking that we could just hook up a propane generator at the senior center, and it's a lot more involved in that. And so working with Bevan, we came up with a bid to run the whole trailer with a propane generator. And the bid is a little over $11,000. Now, I do have $2,000 of it from the county last year. And then we've asked Carson to redo the bid because with Dana's help, we got money for a propane gas stove instead of an electric stove. So it may not take as big a generator. But as we know, we've been, losing electricity, and we're coming into the problem of seniors that have CPAP, other people that you need CPAP and stuff for overnight. And at the visitor center, we have couches and chairs to where we could keep them comfortable if they had to spend the night somewhere, breathing, keep them warm. The senior center, I have been able to start exercise classes over there and open gym at the school. And so getting the seniors out and about. I have talked with another nonprofit to try to get somebody certified to do bingo at the senior center. We would be able to use that funding moving forward if we can get somebody certified. But I think it's really important before winter sets in that we kind of have a plan for heating the senior center and keeping people breathing. I am going to go Wednesday morning to the county to ask for a match of what I've asked for you guys. And I'm thinking that with all of that monies, that we'll be able to pay for this generator and getting it hooked up. Any questions?
So Carrie, does the $4,000 get you the generator? Without the county or with the county?
I'm asking for $4,000 from you, $4,000 from the county. I already have $2,000.
Gotcha.
If the bid doesn't come in any lower, I do have some money left over from what I got from you guys last year. And I would apply towards that too. I've got a little over $1,000, so.
Or is there any option with the prize for kind of the resiliency? Is there any possibility in any of that funding for some of this like emergency?
So all of that funding has been allocated.
Okay.
And it's all for the planning.
Yeah, not for
Then, yeah.
And we will be starting senior meals again, beginning of December. All right, any questions? Any other?
I think Jordan's questions are good.
I've already answered my
Yeah.
question.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you, Carrie.
thank you guys. I appreciate you.
Okay, we had Sarah, so let's go to Clem. Silverton single track.
Yes.
Wait, Jim has a question.
Oh, Jim.
You're still muted.
Thank you. My question was for Carrie regarding the generator in question. The specs on the generator, would it be durable enough for the needs? I guess the amount of output for what you need during a prolonged event. And number two, depending on the type of product or the seller or retailer, there's financing available on these things, which would mean you could space out your payments a little bit longer. Or do you plan on, or is this just a one shot, I pay it all up at once and then that's it?
Yeah, I'm not real
I
sure.
apologize. I apologize for.
Okay, I'm not real sure. Bevan is the one that is working with Carson to do the bidding and all of that. I don't understand it, but it would be a big enough generator to run that whole double wide. Keeping people warm, lights, all of the plugins and everything working for CPAP and that stuff. And I think we added a bid in your packet, did we not? Yeah, and we're hoping that with getting the propane stove and we've already run the propane line for the cook stove, that maybe that might be able to lessen the bid for the generator.
Thank you, Carrie. Having seen the bid, though, my thought was to be able to space out those payments a little bit longer, because we're looking at those cost-cutting measures across the board. That was my only really thought.
Okay, and you might be able to talk with Bevan about that. I don't know. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Sorry I missed you there. Okay, now Silverton single track.
So there was a rather lengthy presentation in your packet that I won't go through. It's a lot of stuff you guys have already heard from me many times. So I thought I'd just kind of update you on what happened this summer and what has changed since last time I spoke to you guys. Initially 3 years ago, we were trying to raise all the money in one go for the entire thing, the $2.5 million. As we got into it, it just kind of seems like that was really never going to happen, because the question was always, well, if we give you this money, then how are you going to get the rest of it? So we decided this year instead to focus on what we were calling phase one, and we're now calling the Aspen phase, which is what we started on the first 10 miles up on Boulder there, and got off to a good start with that this summer. We had IMBA Trail Solutions here for 13 weeks, 2-person crew with a mini excavator and hand tools. And then we also had the Southwest Conservation Corps here for 6 weeks, the tail end of their visit. And they all worked really well together. I think the one takeaway that we might have changed, that if we had thought about or known how it was going to go, is we didn't think that we were going to be able to use volunteers this summer, because we thought it was going to be, they were just going to be out there with their machines and we didn't want to get in their way. As we got into it, turns out that we actually could go out and help with volunteers. So we were able to organize one volunteer workday, which was well attended and super fun. So next summer, we definitely plan on doing more work with volunteers and kind of just get the community more involved. Let's see. And so this summer cost us, we're still waiting on the last invoice, but guesstimate $118,000. We have the CPW grant that we were awarded for $250,000 plus everything that you all have given us over the years in the county. So we're still in good shape to get going for next summer, regardless of what happens. But we changed our GoCo request. We applied for 650 from those guys. It was 900 last time. And now we are just applying for finishing the first 10 miles. And I feel like we've jumped through every hoop and checked every box that they have asked us to. So we're hopeful that that goes well. We'll know in early December. And if that does go well, then we've got IMBA kind of waiting in the wings, and they're kind of holding on to they kind of sent us what I was told was their top dogs this year. And they're trying to really, they really care about this project. So but they need to know, because they're already well into their planning. So if we get the GoCo money, then we are off and running for next year. And they're hopefully going to be able to finish everything, all 10 miles. By the end of next summer. And so we are asking you guys for 10,000. I think more really as just kind of a sign of support that you guys are behind this project, because it helps us with all the other funders that the town is behind it. I think that's all I got. Maybe just see what questions you guys have.
Questions for single track?
Jordan, yes, it will happen regardless of.
Yeah, you addressed that already.
How many volunteer days are you hoping to do next summer, and how helpful is that to the project?
It's definitely helpful. We haven't really nailed down any numbers for any of that yet. It was kind of a last minute thing that we just put together, but.
You won this summer?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I would say we could definitely multiple next summer, hopefully like once a month, and maybe some weekends, some like quick after work kind of thing, because people just have different times when they can show up for stuff.
How many years do you think the town, and I think you also, let's go with the county question. You also receive funding and support financially from the county as well.
Yep.
And how many years have the county and the town kind of collectively been? Like, do you think we're on 5?
Maybe it's 4 or 5, I think. Yeah. And that's definitely been helpful to be able to put that in our, our grant requests, that we've got that support from the community in general.
You think it makes you more competitive for your grants?
For sure. Yeah.
That and Kate and Elliot's super cute letter.
Yeah, the letter.
That
Yeah.
you will put on the packet. Dear bike people. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the video and all the other stuff. I mean, we put together a lot of just like, they asked about community support and we said, okay, well, we'll show you. And we sent like the more support letters than they had asked for. And Sally, you made us a nice video with the kids that we sent them as well. And yeah.
And again, this is 100% volunteer organization.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for single? Jim, are you good? Do you have anything for single track?
Look at the palm trees.
Got dark.
Yes, there are palm trees. I do. Clem, this is an awesome project, and I've been all about this since day one. Keeping this thing going and keeping you guys flush with funding is a priority. If for any circumstance that the 10 is cut, to 8 or to 7, or does that impact you guys in any way? I know that the same question was asked in a forum a few minutes ago, but no pun intended, but keeping you all moving forward and keeping it on track gets this project done and gets people moving. So what are your thoughts on that one?
I think if it was reduced slightly, I don't think that would be the end of the world.
Okay. That helps.
Every bit helps, it's a $2.5 million project in the end. So it's big bucks we're talking about.
I completely understand. Hey, thank you. That was my question.
Great. Thank you.
I have an additional question.
Sure.
Are you planning on doing any additional fundraising efforts? I remember there was a GoFundMe initially that actually made its way like all the way out to Utah and Nevada.
Yep.
Is there going to be another one of those?
That one is still going and we still keep getting more money for that. And we've also gotten just, some people give us kind of private offline donations that we're kind of counting as part of that. But it's like people that get, matches from work or whatever else that they can't put it in through that portal, and then they'll just send us a check and we're just kind of keeping a running tab of it. But we're close to our goal, but not quite there yet.
Nice, good question. Any others? Awesome, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Really well done. It's really high quality work up there. What,
An updated staff recommendation. I'm sorry to do this. This is a new budgeting software. It's really hard for me to try and get used to it while I'm.
yeah, you're learning to fly while the plane is
Yes,
landing or
yeah.
something.
But what I realized is when I presented the big expenses, I did not include the 112,000 for potential grant match. That is something that we could potentially scrap from our 2024 budget and use excess funds as they become available for grant matches.
Was the 112,000, was that a number you pulled out of the air as an idea for grant matching, or was it what you were for specific grant?
It was 100,000 was pulled out of the air, and then the 12,000 was added to remind myself that SMPA might have a grant coming up, and the 12,000 was for that grant.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't.
That
random.
exists somewhere else in the budget, but could be viewed in the list of big expenses, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
And then we would only need to cut 18,984 from the budget.
Right, every little bit helps.
Is the ClearGov website working again?
The transparency site is not, but the actual ClearGov budgeting site is.
Okay, so Gloria, what we've done is we've kind of heard the landscape from your perspective on some of those numbers of like 3-month reserve, big expenses, what our targets are for reducing our expenses. We heard from nonprofits. What do we need to do next?
Well, so we do have the meeting on the 13th does not have a work session yet attached to it.
Round 2, let's go.
If you all wanted to stick to the schedule that we had provided, at 6:30, we would have the special meeting to do the executive session, and then potentially kind of mull this over, give you guys some time to think and go through it all, or you can make recommendations tonight within the next 15-20 minutes. And maybe that might give me some more time to dive deep into the ClearGov budget and make sure I didn't miss anything.
I think that sounds good either way. Do you have questions or need for additional information that might help us if we were to schedule another work session?
I guess I still have kind of a strategic and philosophical question for my fellow board members is looking at the list of big projects, looking at the budget that we've talked about for the last several months. Is there anything else we're missing? Like, are we planning for the strategies that we want to have in place for next year? Like, is there anything on anybody's mind? That you think
Yes,
we're-
on my mind. I have a few.
And that doesn't help us with the cutting, but to me, it still helps us check and say, okay, have we landed in where we want to be as far as priorities? And now we need to figure out how to fund it and where to find the funding. So yes, what are we
A
missing?
few things on my list that I'm wondering about that are missing currently are, and this is going in the wrong direction. So
But I think it's worth putting it
Throwing
out
it
there
out there.
because we can just keep budgeting by keep adding line items, but if we're never stepping back and saying, are we being strategic? So what's missing from your perspective?
land purchases, for potential affordable housing options or wetland protection, or just, we've had several meetings, I think, where land purchasing has come up in any number of contexts, and I don't see that we have any money budgeted for that. I attended Dana's really great, Dana organized a language justice training, and this would be much like slightly moving in the other direction, but not significantly, but for interpretation and services, just starting to maybe put that on our radar, where we have a line item that maybe for 2024, it looks like $2,000, maybe, you know, just to start to get us, I think, creating a little bit more transparency and openness in, I think, primarily for Spanish speakers. I think the other thing that we have sort of batted around, but not necessarily zeroed in on, would be to consider more than a 1.5 core raise for town staff. And finally, one of sort of in line with Dana's, this is less specific and a little bit more philosophical. One of my thoughts is on that idea of like, how do we protect the idea of like the bigger projects and the capital fund system of, you know, over a course of several years, actually single track is a great example of this, where over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, we've contributed around $10,000. And then at the end of 5 years, that's $50,000. And that's a significant number. That's something that can build bridges. It's something that can, you know, it starts to feel more significant than, you know, when we look at like a $10,000 contribution. So I'm wondering if there's a way that the budget itself gets structured to protect some of these expenses / savings, you know, looking at those in the same bucket. And then it's not so much a debate. Like when I saw perimeter trail crossed off on one of the lists of ways to reduce our expenses, this is absolutely true. The perimeter trail is something that's additional, it's an amenity, it's not essential, it's not like sewer. So it's easy to look at those things and say, yep, that's where we're crossing it off. But if we're sort of over the course of years using our budget to protect those investments, it's less of an ask of us as a board on an annual basis. And I think on a long-term basis, it ultimately leads to the investment that the community is asking for. Mm-hmm. So it's, you know, more maybe along the lines of Dana's sort of philosophy on how to protect these larger investments, and maybe add to that, like, what is our strategy? What is our, like, how do we use the tool? How do we use the budget? How do we use the line on the piece of paper to just make it a little bit automatic and ultimately add up to a more significant investment. And I do think that's a little bit tricky too. I want to acknowledge that, you know, if it takes us 10 years to save enough money for the perimeter trail, maybe in 10 years, we're like, why are we doing this? No one cares about the perimeter trail.
But it doesn't necessarily need to be on that long of a timeline. And I was going to jump in and say something similar, where if we are reprioritizing things based off of what we have in the budget, and we say, oh, well, I don't think we can fully fund that this year, but maybe we can allocate funds and circle back to it next year. So there's like little savings / promise.
Yes.
We will be coming back to this
/ reminder.
Yeah.
I mean, the budget is our biggest policy document. It's where we all say, this is what the community's priorities are. And some of it has to be essential services, right? And I think the town has made, this town board and the town has made a really strategic decision to better fund staff. Right? We just have, we have to acknowledge that's part of where our budget has gone. I think we've seen benefits of that as our staff have like quadrupled our grant acquisitions, and we're executing really important projects. And so we can say, okay, strategic investment number one, we have increased the budget around staff. And we have certain base level things we have to do. You know, Gloria's mentioned we've increased some of our costs around snow management because we might have big snow years again. Propane and gravel. It's kind of like we build our budget around the things we have to invest in and the strategic investments. But I think I still keep asking, there's a lot of like fungibility. There's a lot of extra that we can say, how do we want to fund partner organization? What's the biggest bang for our buck? Are we throwing money? It's kind of like if you're saving for a $10,000 dream vacation, you probably can't do that all in 1 year. But if you throw $500 at it over a period of time, it's your placeholder. It's saying that's important to me and I want to make that happen. And so when we look at these lists of big investments, or we think about, are we missing anything? That's why I asked the question of like, does this board think we're missing anything on our big strategic investments? Maybe it's not next year that we can do it, but maybe it's in 2 or 3 years. Are we putting that into our budget to kind of throw money at it to make sure it's still a priority? Because how we allocate our funds is really where we say our priorities are. I don't know. Is there anything else on the list that we're not accounting for, even though we're trying to cut?
I think town staff has done a good job of including almost everything. Nothing comes to mind for me, but I'm only someone who's involved in, you know, a section of the community. So there could be things that I'm not thinking of.
Tyler?
Yeah, the only thing for me, I agree, like, you know, if we use some investment as a placeholder for some of these projects with the promise that we're going to complete them later, that's great. I do know that some people, some of our citizens in town feel like that some of these projects have been, you know, put off 4 or 5 years, and we keep putting placeholders in for them and promising that these projects are going to get done, and they're still not being done. So I can see how some people might think that we're just dangling a carrot and never coming through. Again, there's only so much we can do. Like, the pot of money is what we have. One of the big things that I did agree with on your list that wasn't on here was COLA raises, because we did make our staff a priority and limiting turnover, and we really wanted to focus on retention, recruitment and retention. And I think that you know, I was looking at that earlier, that 1.5%. That's not in line with federal inflation, and that's for nationwide, and what the nationwide COLA increase suggestion isn't in line with what small mountain towns increase is, because the cost of living here is much worse than the national average as far as increases. So that is something that was one of the things on your list that I really agree with. I think that that's something that we need to just be cognizant of. Again, we only have X amount of dollars, and we need to make sure that we're spending those appropriately, but you know, retaining our staff and making sure that they're being taken care of is a priority for me.
How long does it generally take for us to save up for our kind of rainy day 3-month remaining fund?
What do you mean to save up for it?
We have like the 3-month reserve. Like, what if we had 2.5 months
Also, I thought
reserve?
I don't understand how we would save up for it, though. We'd typically budget for it.
I guess yeah.
And then we receive funds at different times in the year, so it's hard to say like when those, you know, so that's actually a really difficult question.
And that isn't
I don't know if it's
litigated by the state. I thought that was a state statute that we had to have X amount of operating funds as a municipality in reserve.
No, it's best practice. And we don't have anything.
Well, then throw it out. Let's spend the money. What do we?
Whoa.
Come on, our economy's gonna.
We're just gonna be like.
For the next 5 years, nothing bad will happen.
Jim, okay, it
We
looks,
sit in a car and.
Jim's computer broke out the window. He's like, go with it.
that broke Jim's computer.
He crushed his.
I just literally went crazy when I heard that.
Jim, I was joking. I was joking.
Oh, good. Okay, I'm back. I'm back.
Well, we don't have a formal policy for it. It is best practice, and that's something I would recommend keeping.
That is not.
Especially here, I would actually recommend like a larger reserve, just given our remoteness. But
Mhm.
3 months would get us through. But if we were to lose like 3 months in the summer because say a fire happened, those are our biggest months. So we wouldn't necessarily be able to recover that 3 months. It might take us 6 months to recover from that or longer.
And, you know, we can look at the trends, obviously from the chamber meetings we've had, we can talk about sales tax and the rosy picture and how great it is. We've diversified with online sales tax now and the increase in visitors, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, our economy is largely dependent on a tourism-based economy. And so we are more volatile than many other municipalities would be. So I think that best.
So higher expenses and more volatile, yeah.
One thing also, when it comes to our nonprofit requests, let's say on the Western Colorado Community Fund Board to board grants. And we were looking at a significantly smaller pot of money this year compared to last year to give away. And instead of going through the nonprofits and judging them based on what we knew we had to give away, we based them on their merit. And we scored them strictly on the merit and we ignored the money that we had. And then afterwards, we took, you know, I hate to say winners, but the ones that we had scored highest. And then we awarded them money as a percentage based on what we had. And I think that maybe we could take the same approach with these nonprofits if we do have to cut our nonprofit asks. Still judge them based on the merit of the project and how it affects the community. And then if we do have to make some cuts to nonprofit asks, then we can do it as a percentage of the whole.
Like if our overall nonprofit budget, we say we reduce it by X%.
Right.
Or really, we don't, let's say we don't even reduce it. Right now, the requests exceed the
it's above
budgeted
the
amount. So
yeah.
regardless, the funding of those requests has to decrease.
Well, but even if we're trying to
$7,000.
find more for the.
But if we're
fund,
trying to do
we have
more
to
than
decrease
that.
total, Yeah.
Ask Matt what's available.
Did you have like a scoring card for that? Or did you just talk through the merit?
No, so some of them, yeah, so there were some of them based off of their application or lapse of questions answered. Obviously, they didn't make it at all. And the ones that we did decide that were worth it, we went through and we scored them, and then we took as a full percentage, like what would these be worth if we had all the money, and then break that into a percentage, and then we applied that to what we actually had.
Would that be a helpful exercise for you all before our next meeting? If everyone scored these?
Can we establish a scorecard first?
Yeah, that's what it sounds a little bit like there's a
Also,
layer.
yeah, and it also it seems also unfair, maybe in this case, because we started telling our applicants that 2 years ago.
Right.
You know, if you're, when it comes to, I guess, applying for grants, hopefully it goes without saying in a lot of cases, but like we fill out a lot of grants for the ambulance, and if anything is incomplete or you don't fill out the grant exactly how they ask you to fill it out, you're just disqualified. You don't get a lower score. You're just done.
You're ineligible.
Well,
And so we do that with the Western Colorado Community Fund as well. So that takes some of it out. And then after that, you know, what's the merit of the project? Does it fit with our mission statement? And if so, then how can we score it? But without telling the applicants beforehand, it doesn't seem as fair.
Since we've already established the things that coincide with the objectives of the master plan, our highest priority, maybe we can weight that most heavily in
Mhm.
the type of scorecard. And then take other factors into consideration.
I mean, or we can kind of do a combination of what Tyler was saying of just like, if we have to reduce the number from 57 to 50, then we just apply that same reduction percentage to every request.
But I would,
But I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying there are these multiple
Probably
approaches.
it's probably a combined thing where we can take the total amount requested, reduce it by X percentage to make it fit into the current version of the budget,
Mhm.
and then create a scoring criteria so that if we need to make additional cuts,
Mhm.
we can rely on that criteria.
Mhm.
It's just an idea.
The nonprofits are so, go ahead.
That doesn't also, even if we cut the entire nonprofit budget, it doesn't get us to where we need to. So.
Yeah.
That's what I was
It's only just, this is just a very small
Yeah,
fraction of what we also need to consider as a whole, but like getting that number down.
Gloria, what was the number after, was it 100?
Grant matches.
Or 118, the grant matches, yeah.
Yeah, so after, if we took out the grant matches, it's 18,984,
wait, 18,000 or 118?
18,000.
So it can get us pretty
Minus the-
close.
So if you reduce the nonprofit budget to 30,000, you can make it up there if you want.
But like, isn't there an argument? Well, so you're saying, I need to know though, that the grant match, like, to me, that's a strategic priority. That's what's made our staff successful. That is what has allowed us to leverage this high capacity staff that we're investing in. So if we completely remove that from the budget, that to me feels like a strategic problem. So my question to you is like, do you still feel confident? Do you feel like either one, the staff has enough on their plate for what we're already executing for the next year, or two, you would be really disappointed to not have the potential to pursue additional funding options that would fund affordable housing, that would help our facilities, that would promote community engagement, whatever it is. So like, that's a strategic question still, to just pull that 112,000 out of the budget.
We want to say that the 112,000, it doesn't account for affordable housing because there are funds available for grant matches through the county, through their tourism fund. So since we split that up, they do have funds for grant match. Now, it's not a lot right away. It's about 40,000 next year, but I have already talked to Willie on if, the housing authority does a project, will we have a match and affirm that we would, but it would only be at that 40,000.
Yeah. So do you feel like taking the 112,000 out of the budget is a good strategic choice?
That is a policy question.
Dana, earlier you had asked her where that number came from, and you mentioned there was 12,000 set aside specifically for SMPA. How did you arrive to the rest of the $100,000?
The rest of the $100,000 was basically, kind of like, we spent 94,000 on the Zanoni property as a grant match. So thinking of a grant of that size, having $100,000 in our pocket would benefit us.
Thank you.
Yep.
I do want to recognize that it's 6:32 and we have an executive session special meeting starting at 6:30.
We were trying to promote play onto the he declined.
So I need a bathroom break.
Yep.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, can we circle back to this at the next first meeting?
Right.
We can.
Great.
And our partners are just lovely, engaged audience members that we are telling we will get back to you next time. Is that that's where we are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jim, did you have a comment for
I
them?
did. Really quick, I had my hand up. I wanted to apologize. Earlier to Clem, I was trying to ask him a question and I had directions and people coming and talking to me. And thank Clem again and thank everyone that presented this evening. Because I know that as much as we depend on our budgets and our strategy, everyone else does as well. And when you're anticipating X, when you receive Y, that creates the overall havoc. And I just want to thank everyone for being malleable and being able to work with us as we're working with you, as we work together in this community to fund all these projects and keep everything moving. So again, I just apologizing to Clem for not being able to articulate that in the moment. So thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jim. He's still here, so he heard that.
Oh,
Thank you guys
sir.
for presenting. As you can see, we have really big things thinking about, and we have lots of line items to think about, so.
We'll let you guys go into incognito mode. Thank you.
Okay, maybe can we just take a quick 2-minute-ish bathroom break and
You did show up.
Yeah.